Hello, and welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. Each episode, we talk about a particular topic in the life of a professor. We are tenure-track faculty members in the sciences, working at a primarily undergraduate university in California. The purpose of our podcast is reflection, so we bring something we think is working and something we're working on to discuss.
Welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Claire. And today we're going to talk about writing grants. But before that, first, how was your week, Ruth?
My week was, we're all still indoors.
All still indoors.
Yeah, I think that I'm definitely seeing in my teaching, I'm running up against students having a lot of issues adapting and me having a lot of issues adapting to the students adapting. And
Me too.
I think at the beginning in my head, I was like, that's it. No one is failing my class this semester.
Uh-huh.
No way. And then I sort of run into there was someone who wasn't engaging before this all happened and they have continued not to. And I'm like, oh, geez, what am I going to do about this? Or it's weird because it's not their. So, okay, let me tell you what happened. So this student keeps thinking she's uploaded things, but not uploaded them. And so I keep emailing her and saying hey, you actually didn't upload the homework or you didn't actually upload that quiz. And obviously she's struggling with figuring out how to do things, but I'm even more frustrated than I normally would be because with the kids, if I'm okay, I'm going to sit down and grade these quizzes right now, I need to have all the quizzes.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where the point is where I'm going to start taking points away. It's, you know what I mean? She's really genuine and nice, but part of me is you need to check if it actually worked and not rely on me. So I don't know. It's definitely, I find myself, my initial kind of noble propositions that I was going to get these students through all of this no matter what. And then now I'm oh, okay, but you have to upload your homework. I can't.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling, in general, I'm definitely feeling a bit grumpier this week. And I think it's coming through in things like that.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
So that's a very gloomy start to the episode. How was your week?
Good. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about similar things. I loosened all my deadlines, which I think was good, and so I'm trying to do that thing where I say, this is the deadline, but if you need more time, let me know and it's not a problem. So that hopefully that balance, people will turn in stuff if they can, but if they can't, they still have time to do it later. And so I in general, really like that, but I'm starting to run into problems where the people who couldn't turn it in for various reasons, which I'm not asking them to tell me, just if they couldn't turn it in, now they're getting a little bit confused about which assignments are due when and stuff like that. Oh, and I've tried to be really clear, that each Canvas assignment has a deadline, but it's just getting confusing for them. If they aren't on the normal schedule, then my emails to the class about the normal schedule don't really apply to them, and they're already behind. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how to, I guess, just send more personalized emails, here's where you're at, so these are the next 2 things I recommend you working on, or something like that to try to help the people that are, that have fallen
but then
a different schedule, yeah.
Because I'm so negative, I'm whoa, but that's a lot of work,
Sure.
for you. Is there any way of doing, I don't know, is there any, I guess we can't, but is there a way we could say 3 weeks in, we're going to press a reset button? And
Good.
Because, but then, can we assume that people are up and running at that point?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things I'm secretly doing is, I have many fewer assignments. I kind of cut the final project way down. And so in a couple weeks, we're not actually going to have that much going on. So my hope was anybody who was behind would actually have quite a bit of time to get the main assignments done. I haven't really told anyone that yet because I don't want it to stretch out if it doesn't need to. So, so I don't know. That's kind of my backup plan right now is the final project is now so small that hopefully you'll be able to expand any assignments you couldn't do into the final project time slot.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a quote for us for this week?
I do. And this quote is from an awesome show that I don't know if you've seen, but it's My Hero Academia, which is an anime show.
No, I've never heard of it.
It's fantastic. It's about all these heroes in training who go to a hero school and learn how to be a hero and fight bad guys and save citizens and stuff like that. And it's
that
all
sounds
about
amazing.
Yeah, and it's all about, like, they always say go beyond. You know, they're trying to do more than they can. You know, push themselves to their limits and push past their limits and do the best they can possibly do. So anyway, I really like the show. I think it's really well done. And this quote is from one of the teachers at the school, and he's the number one superhero, and his name is All Might. And he says, "Whether you win or lose, you can always come out ahead by learning from the experience."
Nice.
And I just think that's so great. And it's always focused on, you know, improving. And
I think that's super relevant to what we're talking about today, but I also think it's super relevant to our whole online teaching lives right now. And I think it's something I have really tried to shift my thinking into with our whole careers, is the idea that we're supposed to grow each time we do this. Right. And it's not supposed to be that you finally get, like, you just, either you're good at it or you're not. And I guess I'm really in the fixed mindset that we're always telling the students not to have, but I'm like, either you can teach or you can't. And so, but that's really true. Okay, good. I like it.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about grants and writing grants. And I think this is going to be an interesting episode because I have had 0 success and you have had quite a bit of success. So I'm super excited to hear what you have to say. And I'm going to be frantically writing down your tips. I might just submit some grants that are about ocean chemistry.
That's if you a great
just
idea.
let me take yours. Okay, so tell me, tell us what has been working well for you, and do you want to share some of your successes?
Sure. So I have kind of 2 success stories in grant writing. I have an NSF award where I was a co-PI, and then I also just got the Cottrell Scholar Award, which is for chemistry, physics, and astronomy faculty. And I also, of course, have lots of unfunded grant applications as well. For example, that National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. It's like maybe it didn't apply to you because you were in Ireland, but it was for graduate students to get funding. And anyway, I applied for that all 3 years that I was eligible and did not get it any of those 3 years. So anyway, that was one of the reasons the quote seemed so applicable, because one of my tips of what's working well is to just keep applying, even though it doesn't work out every time.
Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear, because again, with my fixed mindset, I'm like, well, either you just write the perfect grant the first time and then that's it. So it's very useful to hear.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you, it seems like just from the outside that the NSF grant and the Cottrell Scholar are 2 totally different. I was going to say kettles of fish, but that is not a saying over here.
That's
so
a cool
2 totally different. It's definitely, I can't justify what it means, but 2 very separate categories. That's
sure.
better.
So the NSF one is very science focused. You know, they have the science side, and then they also have the broader impacts side, which is more about how is this going to benefit a broader range of people, kind of thing. And the Cottrell Scholar is very more balanced. There's an education proposal and a research proposal, and both of those are looked at critically, and they're both important parts of the proposal. So science is, of course, involved in both of them, and then broader impacts is more the NSF side, and then the educational one is the part of the Cottrells. I don't know if I explained that well, but yeah, they are kind of a little bit different in that way. And so that's one of the things I also, this is a tip you hear all the time, of course, but reading the guidelines and what the award thing is selecting for, what attributes they're selecting for is huge.
I think it's very, because like for me with the Cottrell and the NSF, it feels like the Cottrell Scholar is more like investing in you and sort of developing, you know, and I mean, obviously the NSF is about you, but it was also about the science proposal you wrote.
That's true.
This feels more like you on your career. But it is interesting, and I think I've definitely heard of plenty of people who just kind of shoehorn the same grant application into everything. And like being, I think, like you said, being really intentional about what the actual guidelines are. That's super relevant. Right.
I do kind of feel similarly. We haven't yet talked about job applications, but that was a topic we thought about having. And that's one of the things it's really clear when you're looking at a whole bunch of job candidates applications that if they're tailored to the particular job they're applying for, it's much more meaningful. And so I think it's a similar thing with grant writing. I agree. It's got to be clear why this proposal fits with exactly what they're trying to fund.
Yeah. And it's funny because I tell students that about grad schools too.
Sure.
Like, it's always clear when, and one time in my job application hunt, I sent in a letter and I didn't change the university. So that is literally the worst thing you can do. But,
I know. Yeah, but just, making it easy on the selection committee to see why you meet the criteria. Makes sense.
Can I ask you about your process for like writing? Because like the Cottrell Scholar felt like a really ginormous packet that you put in. And where do you kind of put that into your day? Like in the old time that we had, like,
sure.
Do you just say, okay, this summer I'm going to focus on doing this, or I'm doing this 2 hours a week, or does it all, knowing you, I'm going to say the answer is no to this. It's not like you just do it all the night before and flip out.
Yeah, it's more like if I decide I'm going to do it, then it becomes a really important thing on my to-do list. And I kind of do it in pieces. The way that I like to write is, and this is kind of true for whatever I'm writing, is whatever part I know needs to be in there is the part that I write. And then, maybe it's not in order or something like that, but at least I know that is in there. Or if I have an idea but I don't have time to write it down, I at least put the idea in there, remember to mention these 5 things or whatever.
Yeah.
My biggest thing that I think I would advise to everybody is to get other people's feedback. And I think that really makes a huge difference. Or, I mean, I'm acting like I've done this a million times, but in my 2 successful times, the other feedback has been really huge. Like when I was a co-PI, the lead PI wrote most of the NSF proposal, and she was very experienced and had gotten lots of NSF awards before, and so she was really helpful in adjusting what I was writing. And then also, in both cases, my pre-award specialist at our Sponsored Programs Foundation read through a lot of stuff and really helped make it seem streamlined. And also, so it's first of all the phrasings and making sure they're clear, and then also the pre-award specialist can really help with, or at least mine did, really help with making sure that I am actually doing it in the format that they're asking for and addressing the points that they want and stuff like that. And also with the Cottrell Scholar, I asked my analytical chemistry faculty member who taught me analytical chemistry, Tom Wenzel from Bates College, who's excellent at grant writing, and he read through it and gave me some feedback as well. So getting feedback from people on what is working and what's not working just makes a huge difference and really makes it easier, because then you say, oh, they didn't get that. Obviously, I need to write it better, and so that gives you so much more direction.
It's funny too what you're saying, because I'm thinking like all of this stuff is stuff like I tell students when they're applying to grad school, but then I'm like, no, but it doesn't, like I don't want to do it because like it's so embarrassing having, but it's really true. It does help.
I was so embarrassed to send Tom Wenzel my proposal because it was not done. Obviously, that's why I was sending it to him. But that was the time to send it to him if I was going to send it to him, and it was not good. And he was like, "This isn't good," and I was like, "I know." But he told me all the things that he thought I needed to do, and that was really, really, really helpful.
Well, and I really feel like, so my husband has, like, his master's is in journalism, and he does a lot of writing for his job. And he knows that everything has to be edited, and you just do this first draft. And it's not something I ever learned. Like, I just believed people could either write, and they just sit down and write this perfect thing, or, you know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't part of my sort of cultural, like, through my education, learning about how you write things and the process, and like I can really see now, like you write something and then you just can't get any further without someone giving you feedback. And then once they come back, you're like, oh yeah, I should put in this and this and this. But when you've looked at something for enough time, you just can't see anything.
It all makes sense what you were trying to say, and so then you think you said it, but maybe you didn't. Yeah.
But it's definitely not something I encountered in my education, was like any kind of writing, like professional writing or scientific writing, like just not something that I got to do.
It'd be cool to offer some like professional development class to students about writing these kind of things.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what about you?
So cool. So I'm saying working well, but I have not had any success yet. So we'll have to see about that. But I think my approach, I sort of had a conversation with myself when I first got here about just applying for absolutely everything.
Oh, cool.
And it has been really good. And they do a thing here which is really good, which is an incentives program. And we have the same pre-award specialist. So that's someone who works in the kind of central financing spot of the university, and they're in charge of sort of getting us through the thing, and they kind of find grants that you might be eligible for, and the person who we both work with is so amazing, and sometimes she's too amazing. Good, because sometimes you want to be like, oh my god, like she's so right, I do need to make these 99 changes, but I don't want to make any more, you know what I mean? And you're like, it would make it better, but I don't want to do it. But she is really amazing and super patient. But we had an incentives program where you could apply for a grant to get either release time or summer salary to write a grant.
Cool.
And so I wanted the summer salary, so I applied for that. Cool. And then I got it, and so then I had to write this grant, which was
perfect.
So, like, the thought of writing 15 pages of a scientific project proposal, it was such a huge mental barrier for me, and it was really overwhelming. And so, but I actually did it, and we got through it.
Nice.
And I kind of can't, like, that almost felt like the big win for me.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, like this thing. And one thing that worked really well for me was, like, when I started writing the grant, I opened all these Google Docs for each section. And then I just, like, add in things to each section.
I love it.
And some of it is more busy work, like making your biographical sketch, or like, you know, filling in information or writing the references or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that, the stuff you can do when you don't have any brain power to actually write the other thing. And so that was really good. And then I was really we had a weird thing. So we submitted the NSF grant, and then I think because of the government shutdown, we didn't get our reviews. Like, it took a long time to get stuff, and so we didn't reapply this year. And that's what I'm trying to wrap myself up for, because our reviews were actually pretty, like, they were pleasant and positive. And I've seen other people's reviews that were just actually vicious. So I was really dreading the review thing. So that was really good. And I think, actually, like you said, also reading the guidelines, and I'm trying to motivate at the moment to write a grant for something that's really different. It's not a science grant. It's sort of like more, what is the word I'm trying to use? It's sort of like, my proposal is to sort of make a workshop for doing some kind of cultural changes in physics. And so I feel really intimidated by that. The idea of writing a grant that's not, it's not going to be physics sort of stuff. And so that's a bit intimidating. Right. I just went right into
that. Sounds awesome, though.
Everything. But yeah, so I think the working well is having that support from Pia is super helpful. Our pre-award specialist is super helpful. And then just having a little bit more of an approach of applying for everything has been great. Good.
I like it.
And even, I haven't gotten anything, but I have all these blurbs now.
Yes.
And then when you do go to write other things, like, I did get a tiny, like, $500 grant to travel to a conference from this national thing. And I definitely took portions of, like, blurbs from other things I'd written and put those together. And so that has been, I think it is good to apply for things, even if you have no conviction you're going to get them, because you just build up more and more of those writing things. Yeah. So what about for you? What are you working on?
I'm working on citations and literature review. I feel like every time I write a grant, I start from scratch for some reason with my literature review. And I just go around, stealing all the citations from introductions of papers, trying to assemble a new pile of literature. And so I guess what it comes down to is I don't have a good system for organizing the papers, and so then I can never find them again, and so then I have to start over. So do you have a good system for keeping track of papers? No, I don't. Well, so in grad school I did, because I had something called EndNote. Have you heard of that? Sounds familiar. Yeah, and it's like this software, and I think the only reason I did it in grad school is because where I was, they had a subscription to it. But it's basically, you can kind of get the citation from when you find the paper, and then you can write yourself some notes about why you picked that paper. I see. Do you know what I mean? And then you can also
whatever way when you're writing, you can integrate it so you can have it, like it has a special reference in EndNote. So when you put it into your document,
cool.
You put that reference in and it compiles all of the stuff for you. And I'm not doing a good job of explaining it because it was a long time ago and I'm sure it's different now. And then I used BibTeX with LaTeX in grad school.
Oh, I did do that. That was awesome.
But and I don't think I ever used it in the same sense of like having like what is the word I'm trying to say? Like in my head, I'm imagining like a card catalog for yourself where you have kind of like the title of the paper and then like, why did you choose it? And so for the last grant I wrote, I think I did a Google Doc where I kept some notes about things, but it was not super systematic.
Yeah.
And I would love to have a better system.
Yeah, me too.
For sure.
I feel like right now what I do is I just like find all the other times I or someone else cited a paper and then grab it. But it'd be better if I just could skip all that searching step, you know? It seems possible.
Yeah, I think definitely. And it's one of those things, you know, like it's true with money and it's true with time, that when you're time poor, you end up wasting a lot more time.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, so this is a long time ago, but when I had my first baby, there was a play group that you could go to with the babies. And if you had the money, you could buy a year-long pass.
Okay.
And it made it like 1/10 of the cost each time. But you had to have this big chunk of money to, you know, and it wasn't a huge chunk of money, but at the time I just didn't have it. And I was like, wow, like if you have money, you can save money. But it's the same with time. Like if you had the time to sit down
and get a good
make
system.
Yourself this kind of
That's true.
card catalog, like it would save you infinite time when it came to actually doing the thing.
It's an investment up front. So do you have the ability to make that investment right now? Yeah,
totally. And it's definitely, it's tricky, but yeah, that is something that would be hugely beneficial. Can you imagine, like, that's my thing in life, is just not having time to read papers.
I know.
And I'm constantly, like, this is not great for the environment, but I'm constantly printing papers and carrying them around in my bag and never like not reading them and putting them in a pile beside my bed and still not reading them. But I wish I had a system for, like, if a paper came into my life, I immediately, why was I interested in this? Even if you don't read it, like, just skim it and like,
that's a good idea.
You know, this is.
Yeah, because what I do is
maybe that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, I send it, like, I snooze an email to myself about it, and then when it comes up, I'm like, push, I'm not going to read that now either. But yeah, that's a great idea to put it, starting now, we could just make a little quick note, this is why this paper was interesting, in some spot. And then it'd be really easy to find it later when we actually are writing a grant or something.
That's super, because so I want to pitch another episode at some point, which is the scholarship of teaching and learning. And it's like doing research into teaching, basically. And I am super intimidated by it because, like, there's a lot of there's really huge amount of and really awesome physics education research. And so I really want to get in on that, but I'm terrified because I don't know how to, like, like when you do science the way we do it, we control everything. And so I don't actually know a lot of statistics and, like, still really struggling with the concept of a p-value and that sort of thing. But so I keep getting these papers and then I'm sort of scared of them and I don't read them. But yeah, I would like to have a better system.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good start, just to start having, like, from now on, when I run into a paper, I'll just make a little note about it somewhere with the link to the PDF or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you could put the link right in there.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I like it.
Yeah. And I know what you mean. It's especially important when you're jumping into a new field like the scholarship of teaching. I'm sure there's all kinds of literature that would be new and, statistics and stuff. So that'd be...
And it's so... You know when you have students in your research group and they start reading papers and they're reading every single word and you're like, no, don't worry about doing that. But it's sort of, I feel like that because I don't particularly have the confidence in physics, but you know, you have some confidence to be like, I don't need to read this bit. I'm just going to read this bit, or I can skim it.
To be able to do that.
To kind of filter it. And so when you're doing something new, it's like, oh, I don't know what the bits I can skip.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. So the thing I'm really working on is not going to be a surprise at all, but it's just the rampant impostor syndrome just kind of the mental barriers of who do you think you are applying for this grant sort of thing. And that is, I really struggle with that. And, you know, there's a lot of times that I have issues with the whole tenure system that we have. And it feels quite frustrating to me sometimes, but sometimes it's good, right? And like one of the ways it's good is I know I have to do these things if I want to get tenure, and they're not things I would voluntarily do. I think, you know, if I had a choice about it. So I think it is good in pushing you and sort of getting a little bit over those imposter barriers, but it's tough. It's really tough.
I know what you mean. I have the Cottrell Award, and I still feel like my research that I proposed in it is probably not good, and so it's just weird, you know. So the imposter syndrome comes up all the time. So anyway, I think that fits really well with your apply for everything mindset, because you can't let the imposter syndrome stop you from applying to something that you know, well, you have no idea if it, you know, with the imposter syndrome, it's really hard to have a good understanding of whether you're a good fit for it or not, you know? So the idea of just applying for it is a great idea.
And kind of like going back to what you said earlier on, but just applying for everything, it actually does dilute some of that. Like if you were only ever going to apply for one grant in your whole life, like you would build it up so much in your head. But if you're like, okay, here's this other thing I'm applying for, and it lessens the sting a little bit then too. But so I think I actually just got this incentives thing for next summer.
Awesome.
To write this other grant. So still terrified, but still need money. So still write the grant. And I do feel like having the pre-award specialist we have and the kind of structure she provides is really helpful.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
So is this a revision of the previous one, or is this a totally different one?
Was like I literally had no idea what you could put on there.
Oh, I know.
It's just beyond anything I've done before. So that was super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's great. Thank you, Claire. And I just want to say to everyone listening that Claire absolutely does wonderfully deserve the Cottrell Scholar Award, because she's so awesome. But I mean, it's irrelevant coming from me, because it's our own internal critics who are the problem. But yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Ruth. This has been good to think about.
Yeah, I feel a little more motivated, and I think, sorry, I'm going off on another thing, but in grad school, the thing that I was doing, the research I was doing, involved a lot of cleaning glassware. And I always remember, like, that was a thing you could do on a day when you couldn't do anything else. You could go and, like, wash all those dishes and feel, like, really good about having achieved something. And so I really like the idea of making that kind of citation document. Like, that's something you could do. Or, like, there's all these things you can do that when you can't do the big thing, the moments of, you can still do the kind of...
Totally.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, and thank you again to Ralph for setting us up with this recording business over Zoom.
Thank you, Ralph, and thank you, Ruth, for this great conversation.
Okay, bye, till next time.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. We're delighted to have you as a listener, and we would love to hear from you. And if you want to email us, our address is contactprofessorpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear any of your suggestions for future shows, or professor quotes that you might want to share with us, or even just things that have come up for you when you were listening to previous episodes. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, we would love if you would spread the word. So the best way to spread word is by telling people you know if you think they should listen to it, or you can leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.